All right, Ryan. So news came down early on Monday that Deshaun Watson, the recommendation is he is suspended for 6 games for violating NFL's personal conduct policy. Judge Robinson, who was jointly appointed by the NFL and the NFL's Player Association to rule on the case and administer any punishment, listened to the arguments from the league, the union, Watson's attorney during a 3-day hearing held in her home state of Delaware in late June. The NFL have been pushing for a suspension of at least a year, while the union and Watson's attorneys obviously didn't want the quarterback to be suspended at all. 6 games is the recommendation. Watson's people not happy about it. The NFL's people not happy about it. The fans of the Cleveland Browns are kind of split depending on if you support Deshaun Watson still or not. But generally the way it works is when both sides are not happy, then it was a pretty successful negotiation. But what are your thoughts on the news coming out of a 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson?
It's about, I guess, where I thought it would be. It's confusing, and I think the NFL, or in this case, Sue Robinson, is kind of in a tough spot because, one, they only looked at 5 of the cases, not 25 or 30 or whatever the final number ended up being. But if you're the NFL or kind of really any employer, you're put in a tough situation when you have somebody, an employee, who did something really bad or allegedly did a bunch of things really bad, but there's not like enough evidence for the law to say, oh, well, you're not like bad enough to be in jail. So then it comes back on the NFL to where now people are looking at them to dole out some type of justice. And for them, it's, hey, we just pay the guy. Like, we're not some rulers of society. We're not supposed to be the law and order like we're supposed to play football. So I can understand why Deshaun Watson's people would say, hey, like, the law didn't determine that he did anything wrong or drop the charges or whatever the case was, right? He didn't spend a single day in jail. So why are you guys going to punish him further? And then the NFL is like, yeah, well, he's still a bad person, and we think we have enough evidence to suggest that, even though I'm sure the NFL doesn't have all the evidence that the law might have, right? So I think it's just a tough spot. I think 6 games is probably what I thought was going to happen. It's on the lighter side of what I thought was going to happen. I thought you'd probably look anywhere from 6 to 8, maybe even 8 to 10. But, you know, now it seems like it's going to be 6. And the important part is the NFL can say really whatever they want. They can say, hey, 6 is perfect. They can say, hey, 6 is too harsh. Let's give him 4 games. Or they can say, kick rocks. Forget 6. He's going to be suspended the entire year. They can really do whatever they want. But this recommendation by the judge here, I don't know. It falls in line with, I guess, what I thought was going to happen.
There are so many head-scratching things about this entire situation with everything that's played out in the courtroom with the drama of all of this. 25 different women came forward regarding issues with Deshaun Watson and being inappropriate, to touching them, to put whatever. And for whatever reason, the NFL only brought 4 witnesses to the trial. The 4 they thought best supported their case. They only spoke to 12 of them regarding this trial. So you have 20 plus that you did not use. And then meanwhile, Judge Robinson completely flat out says that he did this stuff, but called his sexual assault nonviolent. Now, I don't know what she is looking for as far as violence. Did you want him to beat the girls up? If he is forcing himself on them,
I don't think she wanted him to do anything.
Right, right, obviously. But, to say that it was a sexual assault, and the word assault is in there, and then say it's nonviolent, doesn't make any sense to me. And the NFL, if you are trying to legitimately put a case against Deshaun Watson, then why didn't you talk to the other 20 plus women who have come forward and stated all the same stories? And there's different rules that have come out now, and they needed the names involved, so one of them pulled out because she didn't want her name involved, and I completely understand that. You don't want your whole world turned upside down. You are a private citizen. But there's just so many head-scratching things involved in this, from what the NFL decided to do to the words that Judge Robinson used to go along with, obviously, what I consider a light sentence considering, look, I understand it's a he said, she said, and there is no video evidence like you had with Ray Rice, where initially the NFL came out and said, we're going to suspend Ray Rice for 2 games. And then the video came out, and you see what he did to his wife in the elevator and the attack. And it's, well, you're not sticking with those 2 games anymore. In fact, you're getting blackballed completely out of the league, and that's that. So there's no video evidence. There weren't cameras in the rooms that Deshaun got massages in. But it's a hell of a conspiracy if 25 women have the exact same story. So to me, it's just the overwhelming number of people involved that are saying the same things that gets me to be leaning towards this happened. And now what are you going to do about it? And it seems as of right now, the NFL is not doing much about it.
I mean, and again, as like the employer, what should you do about it if you're not able to get, you're able to speculate, of course, but you can't really just kind of do anything based off speculation. And then the facts that they do get, it's not everything that I guess has been alleged. Like you said, there are people pulling out. They only talked in this, I don't know, report or whatever it was to, like you said, 4 witnesses brought in and then talked to only 12 of the alleged victims. So I don't know. I don't even understand why we're looking at the NFL to adjudicate these things. And like why we wouldn't just put more pressure
because
on,
they're the employer,
like the law enforcement, and say, hey, if this guy did get accused of doing this thing 25 times, like why is he not in jail?
All right, but let's say your work environment, and you got 4 women, not 25, but just 4 women that went to HR and said, Ryan Griffin is harassing me and this, that, and the other. They're all the same kind of stories.
That's a different situation. Like if if these Texans personal trainers or something had said it, then it'd be different. But if 4 random women just went up to your work, I don't necessarily know that your work would do so much about it. I'm sure they would talk to you and say, hey, what's the deal? But if there's not, you know what I mean?
Right.
If you're not in jail, if you're not
because Deshaun Watson
court,
didn't
know that Deshaun Watson
go by the rules of using the
but
in-house.
I don't know that he was ever like on trial or anything.
Well, yeah, but because Deshaun Watson didn't use the in-house masseuse, he didn't use whoever the Houston Texans would have, because they have all these people. Every NFL team does. Yeah. They have their team doctors, they have their massage therapists, they have everybody. All right, their PTs and everything. They have everybody to use. Obviously, Deshaun Watson wasn't happy with the way that the massage therapist for the Houston Texans either looked or acted or whatever. But he went outside the lines for a reason. And went and found these independent ones and DM'd them and hit them up on Instagram or whatever to have his massages, which is sketchy enough as is. You got your company's providing it for you. You don't want to utilize it. Why? Why don't you want to utilize it? I'm assuming the person they have hired is good enough at their job and knows how to be a physical therapist for athletes that you would think it'd be the right kind of person, massage therapist, whatever, to take care of your aches and pains. You obviously didn't want that, and you went outside the lines and went and found independents that has now come back to kind of bite you in the butt, but like you said, they're not employees of the company. And so it is a different situation than if, you or I at our work and we had coworkers complaining about us. It's a completely different scenario. So now
then you're affecting
the point
the work
absolutely
environment.
stands. No, you're absolutely right. Your point is spot on that it's a completely different scenario because they weren't employees of the Houston Texans. And him going out, there's just so much as far as, like I said, head scratching for what he has done or accused of doing and how it's being handled to now the ruling. And it's so confusing with every outlet is saying Deshaun Watson suspended 6 games. Let's be clear on this. He's not suspended 6 games yet. This is not you have to do this. This is Judge Robinson's recommendation to the NFL, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So it's not a sentencing. It's not anything like that. This is her recommendation to the NFL that, from what I have seen, the evidence provided, the testimonials, I believe he should be suspended for 6 games. Now, with the verbiage that she uses and firmly believing that he did these things, how do you get to 6 games?
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I think he did them too. I just don't know why we're looking at the NFL to be the main factor here. if people believe he did it, they probably believe he should be in jail, right? I don't think there's a person who's like, hey, you sexually assaulted 25 people, but it's okay. You don't have to go to jail for it. You're a changed man or whatever. So for that, if the law for if you're going to make this black and white is essentially saying he didn't do it because he's not in jail, then I don't know how you're like. So I don't know. It's just confusing to me. I just wish we had a better justice system to where somebody like Deshaun Watson, if he was guilty of these things, wouldn't have the power and influence to pay hush money or whatever it is, right, to get all these cases settled so that they don't look as bad and they don't go on as long, more info comes out, all of that stuff. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is, and I just don't know. I don't know how, if you're the NFL, you're supposed to. You're certainly not going to make everybody happy at all, because there are probably people who believe if Deshaun Watson's not in jail, he should be able to play no matter what, right? He shouldn't serve any game suspension, which sounded like it was the theory of Deshaun Watson and his team, his camp, whatever you want to call them, where they were mad about being suspended for any games because the charges were dismissed, dropped, whatever you want to say. And then there's people who are like, no, like, there's a horrible human being. He should most certainly not be able to play in the NFL ever again. So the NFL was kind of in a lose-lose situation, I thought, anyway. And, I mean, it's even sad to say, but I think by the time, if they just say, yeah, 6 games go with us, by the time week 7 or week 8 comes around, I don't know exactly when their bye week is, and he's able to play again, I don't know that this is going to be such a massive story, which sucks to say, but there's just so much that happens in the news cycle in the NFL in those first month and a half, first half of the season. I don't think it'll be as big of a story then as it is now, and then I think it might just kind of get buried, which is unfortunate for the victims.
Absolutely, and we've seen this a lot with athletes, and so we tend to lean towards believing the victims with these athletes, unless they're obvious. There's stuff that comes out that really puts the victim under scrutiny as far as how believable are they, what's their credibility, things of that nature. But when you settle with 24 out of the 20, it definitely does not look good. Now, I understand people do, why would an innocent man settle? And it's for this reason right now, what you and I are engaging in, what the thousands upon thousands of media outlets, whether it's social media ones or the big boys, are going to be talking about. And you don't want your name dragged through the mud. And if you have the money to take care of it, and it's not going to affect your life by paying off a whole bunch of money, because I'm sure it was a whole bunch of money, to each of these women, to make them go away so that you can go back to living your life, innocent or guilty, I understand if you have the means to do it. We haven't talked much as far as the assumption that Deshaun Watson is innocent. And we're talking about the two sides and what they wanted, with the NFL wanting a full year and Deshaun Watson's camp wanting 0 games. If he is completely innocent of that, obviously you don't want to be suspended any games. This is the game that you love to play. It's your job, and you want to continue to do it. And so if I was completely innocent, I'd be screaming about, I wouldn't sit there and go, yeah, I'm okay with 2 or 3 games. No, you're not suspending me at all. If I didn't do anything, and I know I didn't do anything, I'm not going to be happy with any games whatsoever. So I get it from that side of camp. But of course, it's also, what is he supposed to say? Because if he come out and says, you know what, I'll be okay if it's only 4 games. Well, now you just sound guilty and you just got away with it. So, of course, you're going to come out and scream, don't give me any games.
Yeah, and at first, I think I probably still believe it, is I think he believes he still didn't do anything wrong, because if he knew he messed up, right, and he knew that he was doing something at the time that was nefarious or was putting anybody in compromising situations, then when this first came out, I think he would have just settled then and been like, ooh, hand in the cookie jar, I got caught. Here's this money, please don't, you know what I mean? Let's stop the story right here. The fact that he didn't settle months ago makes me believe that he believes that he's innocent. And then now I think people probably just told him, hey, dude, this has gone on way long enough. You just need to stop this. But, at first, that's, what he said, the truth will come out, right? He was crying innocent the whole way, and I think it's because he believed it, because if you didn't believe it, you would have known that you did this more than once. Right? It's not like one person would have complained and it's just one-on-one. I don't see how you couldn't realize that once one person said it, if you knew you were guilty, right? How when one person said it, you knew you did this at least 25 more times, probably more, right? Just people don't always want to come out for their own reasons. I don't see why you wouldn't just put it out right there and say, all right, Like, you caught me. Here's all this money. And instead, he went to fight to get his name not dragged through the mud, and it just ended up getting dragged through the mud more. He thought he'd come out clean like Andy Dufresne, and it didn't happen.
Well, I don't know for sure. I'm assuming not. But none of these women were repeat jobs, right? They didn't come back again to give him another massage.
That I don't know, but I feel like probably.
You think they came back, like, after being assaulted? They come back for more?
I mean, I think there's at least one of them that, not that they maybe didn't think they were assaulted, but, I'm sure he paid them for the massage. I'm sure he paid them a lot of money for the massage. And they're like, oh, I didn't like that, but he just gave me however much money he gave them, right? And they're like, oh, right. I can kind of use that. So I think there are women, I haven't read them all, I guess, but I would bet that out of the 25, there's at least one that didn't necessarily think anything criminal was happening, right? Just something that was weird. And then they heard all these other women coming out, and they were like, oh, that happened to me too. That was actually against the law. Boom.
Well, so the reason I bring this up is that you're talking about Deshaun Watson waiting to then profess his innocence as opposed to getting in front of it with each of these women. But if he's sitting there and each one of these is a one-time thing and they didn't know about each other, then none of them has the intuition to record the situation because that's why I was asking, did they come back? Did any of them come back more than once? Because if he's going to continue to do this on a one-time per person situation where they don't know what's coming and he knows he can get away with it because there is no proof, then he's able to do it 25 times to 25 different women.
I mean, if they start recording it, I'm sure they lose their job. Like, you're probably not allowed to record like a massage session.
Oh, I'm sure you're not.
I'm sure that's massage like place policy.
I'm sure you are not, but you can also make a heck of a lot more money for the person getting it off that evidence of a one time and extorting the dude than you're going to get for the next 5 years doing your job as a massage therapist.
Maybe, unless he join a group with 25 women and then just start settling.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it was a lot of money to make him settle. And like I said, I think Deshaun thought he was innocent at first.
All right,
or he probably still believes it, but at just this point, he was like, yeah.
But, I mean, obviously, Deshaun knows the truth. Whether he's told us the truth or not, he knows the truth. There's no believing with Deshaun. He knows whether he's innocent or not. And we're never going to find out for sure unless one of the women did record it and we know for sure it did happen. Otherwise, it's all hearsay, unfortunately, for these women. If they are indeed victims of what Deshaun Watson has done, they have no way of proving it, and that absolutely sucks. One of the things you brought up talking about this is, why are we looking at the NFL with this? Well, we're looking at the NFL with this, and you know this as well as I do, because there is a history of this in the NFL. There's Kareem Hunt. There's Ray Rice. There's dumbass who with the Cowboys who became an MMA fighter. Why am I blanking on his name all of a sudden? But there are countless examples of NFL players in similar situations, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's sexual assault. And the NFL, in years past, have not done right by their female fans. They just haven't. If you are good at football and you can put a product on the field that people want to watch, that is what the NFL cares about more than anything else. They can say all they want about protecting the shield and all this crap. But when you suspend a wide receiver for a year for sports betting, which is legal, and you have video of Kareem Hunt not only attacking a woman, but then leaving and then coming back to attack her again, there's just too many examples throughout the history, the last 20 years of the NFL, and Roger Goodell not dropping the hammer in ways that he is able to, that people are going to look right to the shield to say, do something, because you've had too many years of not doing something.
Yeah, and I don't think that people should have looked at the NFL for any of those situations that happened. Like, I know they have a long history of improper suspensions, if that's what you want to call them, right? Not giving enough games, not being harsh enough, whatever the case is, letting these guys back in their league. But I don't think they should have been put in the position in the first place to, again, like adjudicate that punishment for a lot of these guys who didn't spend a day in jail. Or if they spent a night in jail, they posted their bond and like then just never went back. You know what I mean? I think more pressure should probably be put on the justice system, the law enforcement, as it pertains to people who are rich, famous, have a ton of money that can use power and influence in the way that, you know, somebody who's involved in a domestic violence like case and just works at Costco like that, they can't do it, right? So I don't think the NFL should ever be put in position to do any of these things. And it's definitely inconsistent, and there's a history of it. And one of the things that I think the NFL takes more seriously than pretending that they care about women or, you know, victims of abuse, assault, whatever kind, is they don't want the integrity of the game messed up, which is why they came down so hard on Calvin Ridley for betting on the game, because they thought if you're betting on the game, that directly affects the integrity of our game. Same thing with Tom Brady. You got 4 games for the deflated footballs, where the NFL thought, hey, you're cheating, so we have to suspend you like we would a cheater. Spygate, the same thing. Not that I think any individual person got suspended for anything, but the Patriots docked a whole heck of a lot of money, again, because of like the integrity of the game thing, as opposed to making sure that all of their players are not even good guys, just citizens that don't break the law for the most part, right? You can be a bad person and not hit your girlfriend or something. And I don't know. I just think that's kind of the NFL's stance on it. And I think that's still apparent. The NFL would not say that's the case, right? They would say we take this the most serious than we take anything. It's our job to make sure that all of our players are doing everything and we're supporting these victims and what have you. And that's obviously not the case. They care more about the integrity of the game and how conduct on the field how much more conduct like affects you on the field than it does off of it, which is why all these bad players or all these bad guys are still be able to play football if they're good players. Because, you know, Ray Rice, there's a point where he just wasn't good anymore, and then teams were like, like even same thing with Colin Kaepernick, right? Like, he's getting a tryout now and he's 35 years old. Okay, he isn't obviously not good at football anymore, right? He's too old. But see, 6 years ago when you blackballed him, he probably still had a little bit left. And it's unfortunate, again, but that's just the way the NFL is operating. They care more about what happens when you tune into their sport than what happens when their players are off the clock, to say.
Right, and that's what's going to keep the fans that are of that belief at odds with the NFL, because they don't want these players to get another chance in the NFL. Everyone deserves a second chance. That's true, but that doesn't mean you deserve a second chance with your ridiculously high-profile job. You can have a life still, and in a lot of these situations, they went by the law, and the law did its thing. Michael Vick got completely busted for it, and he went to jail, went to actual prison for a year and a half, whatever it was, whatever the sentence was. That's what the law said. And then he got another shot in the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles. And there are people that believe you should not get that kind of second shot. You can have a life still. It doesn't mean you should get $250 million when 25 women have come out and said the same thing about how you abused them, how you assaulted them, how you treated them. And so that's where this fan base is coming from, where that's why they're looking to the NFL. They're not looking for the law. The law does what the law does. They're looking to the NFL to say, why are you giving these guys not only a second chance, but a pay raise along with a second chance?
Well, and I think when the law does what the law does and it works the way the law should, whereas if you break the law and it's a serious enough offense, you go to jail, right? Like with the case of Michael Vick. Now you can argue that his jail time was not severe enough, too severe, like whatever side of that argument you're on. But the fact that he got back in the NFL, not that everyone was okay with it, but even people that, of course, didn't like what he did, nobody's out there, yeah, I'm glad he hurt those animals. There were people, I'm sure, who thought, okay, well, like, at least he went to prison. At least he suffered some type of consequence. Now, he went back and he still made millions of dollars in the NFL after that, but at least he had what was coming to him in prison. And then he got out and he was able to, again, retain that lifestyle, that comfortable lifestyle that he was used to living. And of course, there were people that didn't like that. But I think if you polled 10 people that are mad, like that are usually mad about how the NFL handles situations like this, 9 out of 10 of them would prefer that the players go to jail if they should actually be in jail, right? If the offense that they did, which a lot of times it is, right? Drunk driving will get you in jail. Domestic violence, will put you in jail. That the player at least went to jail, even if it wasn't for as long as maybe they would have liked. I feel like people would have a better view of the NFL if a guy like Kareem Hunt went to jail, or Adrian Peterson went to jail or something.
Yeah, so again, we're all over the place with this because this story is all over the place. And if you're looking for reasons for why things were done the way they were done, the 6-game suspension that was proposed by Judge Robinson, she was looking for precedents. And so this ruling relied on 32 previous suspensions under the league's personal conduct policy since 2015. In 21 of those 32 instances, the league suspended the player for 6 games. So including cases like Darius Geis, Johnny Manziel, Greg Hardy, who I couldn't think of earlier. He was suspended for 4 games. The longest suspension was 10 games for Jerron Jones in 2021, but that involved a criminal plea and multiple incidents of domestic violence that were proven. And 2 8-game suspensions of Kareem Hunt in 2019 and Mark Walton in 2020 also took into account multiple incidents of domestic violence. And this is where, again, I'm coming back to the fans that are not happy with this situation in general and are looking to the NFL. You have multiple incidents of domestic violence, and you are more than okay with giving these guys another chance and a pay raise in a lot of these situations for guys that are just not good people. But they're good at football. We're not going to argue. I'm not going to argue whether Kareem Hunt is good at being a running back. He absolutely is. I'm not going to argue that Tyreek Hill is not good at being a wide receiver. He absolutely is. Is he a role model? Is he someone I would want my kids, if I had them, or nephews or whatever, to look up to? No, absolutely not. But they're very good at the game of football, and so they're getting multiple chances because of it. And it is blatantly obvious to that fan base that the NFL cares about that more than they care about employing people that are worth looking up to, because those people aren't as good at football than the guys we just named.
Yeah, and is like Dante Stallworth killed somebody, and I'm sure he's in jail. Maybe not. I think he might even play after that. But, then you look at the guy like Darren Sharper, who's out here Bill Cosby and people, and now he's in jail for a whole bunch of years. So, it has worked, but again, those were guys who at the time just weren't on top of their game like some of the other guys that you mentioned.
Right.
And it does come down to not only what your offense is, but how good you are at football.
All right. Well, the league has 3 days to appeal the decision. I don't fully understand too much in that because they really are, like you said, in control and can say they can do whatever they want to do. They want to stick with the 6 games. They want to lessen it. They want to make it a whole season. They want to blackball them from the league. They can absolutely do it. So I don't understand this whole appeal thing because, again, it's not a sentence. It's her opinion. It's her ruling based off of everything she's seen. But for whatever it is, the NFL has 3 days to appeal the decision.
Yeah, the NFL does, and I think the NFLPA does as well. And the NFLPA has already come out and said they're not going to do that. They want the NFL to just accept the 6-game recommendation and leave it at that. I honestly, at this point, I don't know what the NFL is going to do. I feel like to fake like they care, they might throw on 2 more games on top of that and say, 6 isn't good, but here's 8, and leave it at that. But honestly, God, I have no idea. I'd be surprised if they did anything bigger than that, I guess. If they were like 12 games, I'd be like, whoa.
I tell you, because the NFLPA came out with this yesterday, right? Sunday. They came out with, we're going to abide by whatever Judge Robinson says, and we implore the NFL to do the same thing, right? I feel like they had an inside person that was letting them know it's not going to be that bad. It's not a full season. So get in front of this and try to implore the NFL to go along with it as well, because I feel like if they didn't have that kind of information of some sort saying it's not going to be that bad, it's going to be less than half a season. I can't tell you more than that, but it's going to be less than half a season kind of thing. Then they're okay with it. But if they were being told it looking like it might be a full year, I don't think they're coming out ahead of time and saying we're going to be okay with whatever Judge Robinson says, and we implore the NFL to do the same.
No, they would have. And I think it was already reported that they would have pushed back, right? They didn't want anything bigger than 8 games, I think, or they were pushing for 6 to 8 or 4 to 6, and then anything 8 or 10 or above, they would have pushed back on. So I think 6 is right where they wanted it to be.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.